in junior high, our drama coach did something that would easily get one fired today. She would record episodes of Conan O'Brien from the previous night with an archaic tech called a VCR. A relic from the last millennium. First thing after roll call was her putting on the episode from the night before. Bless you, Mrs. Lunsford, for it was there that I first saw George Carlin. The tail end of the interview was him saying how it's silly that they would censor him for saying asshole with a bleep, and then continued that it was perfectly okay for him to say whole ass. He continued, whole ass, whole ass, whole ass. The man was a genius. In a Charlie Rose interview, he once said that he doesn't do it for the audience. I'm here for me, folks, and you're here for me, and no one's here for you. Whole ass right there. Carlin was a master of his craft. On that last bit, though, I tell you what? He cared deeper than he could ever truly admit. You do not write and perform for people without deeply believing in their humanity. If comedy had a church, he'd at least be a cardinal. Dogma really is absolute cinema. His wife, Brenda, had just died, so he wore a bandage over his ring because he wasn't ready to take it off. I know a fellow romantic when I see one, folks. There are but a couple of schools of thought here. One side of the coin is that he gave in to a misanthropic view of the world. I'd never bet on that half. He was one of the greatest American philosophers that ever lived. His words on the matter were that a jester could become a poet, and then a philosopher. Like Mark Twain with a joint, picked up from a myriad of fans offering them to him at the end of many shows. A joke. How long have you been on the joint? Can't remember, man. An artist of the people. But at the end, he was an effing liar. He was also an ENFP. Full disclosure, I was planning to do this episode without the ENFP thing until I began to think about two things that I learned while researching. He was a man that liked to talk about his feelings on stage, using his authenticity as a shield. ENFP males are about 5% of the population. He wrote initial thoughts by hand and then let his subconscious, our inner artist, the one that never sleeps, he let that one put it on the back burner until he's ready to cook. And when he was cooking, it was time to eat up, folks. Proudly part of the Clean Plate Club. Not a single crumb left. As I said, the ENFP male is a rare type. I've met so few in my life. I know because I am one. Game? Recognize game. I'm speaking for myself here and no one else. But I view our kind as good faith detectives when it comes to the new and the novel, whimsy with wonder. We're often too much for some folk, the way they can be too narrow for our lot. It's neither's fault, but it is up to us on what we do with it. Abhorring the fourth wall would be an understatement for me and my work. But I do hold esteem for the 4 F's: form, faith, fable, and fortune. It is my contention that Carlin did as well. He'd do this thing when working out new material. Well, he'd tell people that's exactly what he was doing. You might call that testing out new stuff, but I call it the performer testing out the writer's words, not fully ever trusting them. They're wildly different monsters, I assure you. Old Georgie boy understood that there is liquor in the language. Maybe some cola and coca somewhere in there too. Other places also. It's easy to ride around censorship, and it shows a certain level of creativity, but it is also the path of the prudent. George Dennis Patrick Carlin did not like to merely go around the rules. That's amateur hour. He came for power. He saw them as his true enemy and brought a wild truth to the table. Welcome or welcome back. I'm Man Needs a Code with a quick reminder to not let anyone tell you what to like or sub to. God knows Carlin didn't. Just wanted to show you the genesis of this work. We miss you, Georgie boy, and this one is dedicated to you. In this work, I'm here to call out that the idealist he was, truly, behind the mask of the mimic, the drab of the doomer, and the cynical eye. You were many things, Mr. Carlin, but you were no cynic. No sirree, George, you were an idealist and a deeply spiritual man who was no atheist. The man's work is deeply foundational to the merging of what a writer and a performer truly is. He also happens to be a comedian. Before it all, though, he was a philosopher. The word speaks for itself, but as a performer, he also owned those thoughts. Sounds, too. He is the one that taught me one of the oldest rules. Writing is only to get it out for anyone willing to read it. Reading ain't easy, and the eyes are the youngest of the big five. But if you're brave enough to own your words out loud for the world and dare them to truly judge your work, then you aren't anything other than an idealist. Moving on. I showed you the first note that led to this vid. Now I'd like to take you through some of Carlin's own words from his journals and his notes. When I study stuff, I do it like a student because we're never done learning. After Brenda, his first wife, died, he called her the keeper of lost dreams. The deepest faith is linked to questioning and doubt. I love how this is a hallmark of the Jewish faith. The struggle is the point. It means you care enough to think. A joke. Muslims give God off Fridays, Jews give him off Saturdays, and Christians give him off Sundays. God gets a 3-day weekend every week. Another entry. If there is, underlined hard, a God, our job on earth is to try to undo all his destructive work. Say what you will, but that's not an atheist to me. That's a man wanting to find faith in a father or a mother. His mom told him that you becoming a star made up for all the bad shit you ever did. Well, with all due respect, F that C right in the A. The next entry or two show what I think were his true thoughts. Each person is a self-generated universe, a world unto themselves, a wonderland. The value of the individual paired with this. There is enough pain and separation from the universe without the need to inflict all of this additional pain on each other. A belief in a link that bind us to one another and a desire to not add to the bad. It was this next quote that is the crux of my argument. He wrote this with the last two words at the very end underlined, the latter double line. You can't care and be really funny. This was it right here, folks. This is where he's admitting that he's making a choice as an artist to lie for the sake of the laugh. The comedian's trap, the reversion to jester, while picking from the poet to part the path. He had a special that was due to air right after 9/11 in 2001. Yeah, that 9/11, not the other one. It had jokes about how much he loved any event where a lot of people die. That he used to like to cheer as the body count went up. Briefly, I feel it's important to explain that there are two types of artists. There are those in it for the money, and the rest of us. Carlin was not doing this for money. That was the happy byproduct, but never the driver. He didn't do derivative. He taught me that above any other rule. Would have releasing it then have been incendiary and most likely make him hated by a lot of people? Well, yeah. But doesn't that sound exactly like what he would have done had he really believed the words? He did not. which is why I was fine shelving it. It happened to also be smart PR, but George was never simply smart. He was a smart ass. Whole ass. Last entry, I feel, but it is vital. After meeting his second wife, Sally, you're a prayer answered. A prayer to whom, pray tell? The 7 dirty words you can't say on television is an iconic work that will outlive any viewer of this video ever. Led to a Supreme Court case. 5-4 rulings usually tell you that we ain't certain about shit. Nor should we ever be. Carlin was a perfectionist who would work material for months, get it fine-tuned, and then go for a cruise. My approach is a 180 on this. With AI on our bad heel, I'm not looking for perfect. That's the enemy of the good and the great. To deconstruct the fourth wall a little now, here's my writing from researching this topic. Me writing about his writing to tell my audience about breaking down the wall after 3. Wrong page. Carlin's notes are key. I'm going to inverse his method. I think he was self-aware, not a true, and I underline that, cynic. He just wore the hat a lot. He did it for humor. The comedian's trap. I am no comedian. I am what he really was. We just got to lose the mask. Truth and comedy are lovers, but they sleep in different rooms. Hope is about fidelity. And we cheat on that gal way too often. We elevate the ordinary in equal deferment to both the writer of the heart and the mouth of the head. Well, that about wraps up this one. As always, thanks for your time. Get good rest. Remember to hydrate. Consume something green, if you can. Make good choices. And don't die. When the comedian is no longer on stage, the joke will remain. What does the idealist leave behind, I wonder?